Hey guys, I just want to show you, we have a video from our block party and just kind of give testimony of what God did there. So if you could just pay attention to the screen, that would be great. Let's roll. Yes. We're in our Living Like a King series, and we've been looking at the throne of God and the four living creatures, and that the four living creatures provide a paradigm to understand how Jesus governs his kingdom and thus how we're to govern ours. And we've been reading this from Revelation chapter 4, verses 1 through 8. So let's just go to the Lord in prayer. Father, I just ask that your presence and your power is just going to saturate this place. And I pray that you are going to speak to us deep in our hearts, Father. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Last year I was working on a business deal, and I was attempting to buy a tract of 12 houses that were foreclosed on from a bank. And I had put in an offer for the houses, and they told me that before they would accept my offer, and that I would have to prove that I could get financing, because naturally 12 houses, they weren't giving them away. And so as I went into the process of trying to get financing, as I talked to one lender, I discovered that there were laws ever since the housing market crash of buying large bulks of houses. And I just couldn't get financing the normal ways, you know. And most people that deal with mortgages and buying housing and lending, you know, they're kind of in-the-box thinkers, you know. They're like, bring in your W-2, bring in this. And I'm like, well, I've got multiple streams of income. I have all of this. Bring in your W-2, bring in your wife's W-2. We'll see if you qualify. I'm like, you don't necessarily understand. So one, as I'd have to move up the food chain, and they were happy to move me on because, you know, closing on 12 houses would be a lot of work for them, so they were happy to try to move me up the food chain. And so most of the time I would be talking to either the president of the bank or the leader of the lending company, and they would explain the laws, and I'd say, well, first of all, you've got to get me show me where all the laws are. And so at that point, I knew that I was going to have to study all of the laws and find the loopholes so I could think creatively to get financing rather than just the same old way of thinking, right? And so I began to study and learn what I was going to do, and then I would begin to think creatively. And like, for example, I was trying to buy 12 houses. Well, the laws with Freddie Mae and Fannie Mac and with lending and all this stuff will only allow you to borrow for 9 houses now. So one of the obstacles I had to get around was I'm trying to buy 12. The law says that I can only buy 9. So how am I going to get around this? So I would have to go to the loan officer and say, first of all, I'll go with the realtor. I talk to the loan officer, and I'm going to say, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to increase the amount of 9 houses, and I'm going to pay for 3 houses for $1. They would say, you can't do that. I'd say, let me talk to your boss. And I would talk to their boss, and they'd say, you can't do that. I'd say, yes, I can. I've read the laws. I can do that. Let me talk to your boss. Finally, I would get to somebody that was either empowered enough or intelligent enough to say, well, you can definitely do this. So then I'd go to the realtor I was working with. I'd say, draw it up. This is how I'm writing the contract. And we need to re-sign all these paperwork. He would go, you can't do this. I'd say, yes, I can. I can do this. You're working for me. Write it up. Okay? And so we began to work through this process. After 3 weeks of working on the lawn, I got approved for the financing, which everybody said was impossible, and there was no way that I was going to do that. Now, I do think I got done wrong by the bank, because as soon as I approved financing, someone that knew one of the board members of the bank, when they got word that I could get financing, someone paid cash for all the houses like within an hour and bought them. So I did get taken advantage of by the good old boy system. However, after 3 weeks of almost 120 hours of working on this project, 3 or 4 vacation days spent, a few nights without sleep because I was trying to work, late into the night to study the stuff, to write this stuff out, to work through the creative things of doing all of this stuff, and the deal fell through. And I had nothing to show for my time and for my efforts. However, that's okay. Because remember what I told you last week. Life is not about results. It's about the chase. It's about the hunt. And even though we didn't reach our goal, the training was still valuable. The work was never wasted because the king understands the work is part of the chase. And the king not only has the passion of a lion, the king also has the work ethic of an ox. Say an ox. And the lessons I learned and the education I gained from that was irreplaceable. And I am going to continue to keep working and keep believing and keep pursuing my dreams. Are you following what I'm saying? But it will require work from you. You see, when God gives you calling, He gives you destiny, He gives you purpose, He gives you dreams. It is not His job to do it for you. He is not going to give you your dreams, your callings, your goals, the passions of your heart on a silver platter. It's not His job to do it. It's your life. And just as He has given you your life, He's also commanded that you live your life. And if you are going to develop your life, you're going to have to put in the work. Don't say amen all at once. The Bible says in James 2:18, it says, but someone will say, you have faith and I have works. Show me your faith without your works, and I will show you my faith by my works. You believe that there is one God. You do well. Even demons believe that and tremble. But you want to know, O foolish man, that faith without works is dead. You see, a true faith creates action. Say action. And if you're going to live a royal lifestyle, then you must develop a disposition toward action. Say a disposition toward action. Even though the business deal didn't work, I defeated fear one more time. Even though it didn't play out, I learned one more time. Even though it didn't work out, I acted one more time. It wasn't easy, and it required work. You see, here's the thing. If you're going to live a life like no one else is living, then you're going to have to live in a way that no one else is living. Let me say that again. If you're going to live in a way that no one else is living, then you must live your life in a way that no one else is living. And if you're going to live like a king, you must learn to work like a slave. You must rule your dominion with the work ethic of an ox. So let's look at this. How does the ox speak to us about our dominion and our work ethic? First of all, kings grow into the challenge just like an ox. Say, I will grow into the challenge. Let me tell you something. If your goal is easy to achieve, it's not big enough. Your goal must electrify you and scare you at the same time. You see, an ox can't pull a plow when he's a calf. He must grow into the challenge. And you've got to grow into the work ethic, into the yoke, so to speak, to do the work, to carry out your destiny. And the first place you've got to start working is on yourself. You've got to grow into the challenge. You've got to address the problems within you. You've got to address your bad attitude. You've got to address your lack of self-control. You've got to address maybe the impulses of being presumptive and moving too quickly or moving too slow. You see, whatever it is that you're facing, whatever has been causing you problems, the first place you start is not just putting your hand to the task. It starts with you. You've got to grow into the challenge. You see, you must work until you turn your weaknesses into strengths, your failures into fire, and your problems into power. You must understand it's not reaching the goal. The first step is growing into the goal. It is becoming the person that can have what you're believing for. It's not having the ministry. It's growing into the person that can have that. It's not owning your business. It's growing into a person that can have that business. It's not reaching that dream. It's becoming the person that can reach the dream. Billy Graham said if he had 3 years to preach, he would study for 2 and preach for 1. Which is just a variation of what Abraham Lincoln said. He said if I had 3 hours to cut down a tree, I would sharpen my axe for 2 hours and chop for 1. If you're going to live the life that God wants you to live, then it starts with you. You see, it's not you choosing the right diet. And listen, I'm in a process of trying to lose weight myself, and I know the struggle is real. But let me tell you, it's not choosing the right diet. It's becoming the person that can stay on the diet. It's not getting out of debt. It's becoming a person that can say no to yourself. It's not fixing your spouse to fix your marriage. It is fixing you. And what you've got to understand is you must enter into the process of growth. And let me tell you something. Do you think you're going to reach your dreams sitting on the couch watching TV? Netflix show after Netflix show after Netflix show? I'm going to tell you, what books are you reading? What podcasts are you listening to? How are you growing spiritually? Where are you getting trained? Who are you sitting under? What are you doing to develop yourself? You see, you must grow into the person that can reach your dreams. And the same thing applies for the church. If we want to develop and reach more people, then we've got to grow into a body of believers that can reach our goals and our dreams. Like, for instance, we've got to grow our Love and Action Network leaders so we can provide a higher quality of care for people in our church. We must do that. We want to have someone that can help once a month in the nursery or in the preschool. We need some folks that can serve by coming early and on Mother's Day. You see, we've got to grow as a body into a body that can reach our dreams. We've got to start acting our size before we reach that size. We got to start acting that maturity before we reach that maturity. We got to start walking the part out before we reach the destination. It's true for you and it's true for the church. Second, the king puts in the effort just like an ox. Say, I will put in the effort. You see, everybody in the whole world says they're going to be great, but their work ethic tells them they're going to be average. If you want to be the best, you got to give your best. You've got to train harder, study harder, work smarter, learn more, grow more. You've got to hustle. You've got to commit to yourself. You must get all in. If you're in business, if your competitor is working 8 hours, then you need to work 9. If your competitor is working 9, you need to work 10. You see, you've got to, it's best to work out and to go all in and to pursue and to work hard. You see, some of us, we talk about dreams and we talk about destiny and we talk about goals, but the reality is many of us are lazy and soft. But if you want to be exceptional, then you must put in the exceptional work. Some people work good in pockets. But you've got to work good also in your areas of weakness. Let me give you an example. You can be the best electrician in the world. But you know what? If you can't manage your office and you can't get your business together, you're going to work for somebody else. You can be the best plumber in the world. But if you're scared to talk to people and get bids, then you're going to starve to death. You see, it's not only developing your strengths, which is part of it, it's also developing your weaknesses enough where you can at least manage someone else to help you in those weaknesses. You've got to address the problems. You've got to address the areas of weakness. You've got to develop yourself. And you not only have to work hard, you have to work hard in the right areas. You must master the things you don't like across the board. Now, a king knows he must work until he or she executes their task. You must finish. Say, I will finish. And I'll talk more about this in the next few weeks. But you've got to break your larger goals into smaller goals. You must consistently execute your smaller goals. You must finish. What difference does it make if you work hard but don't finish? You can go to college be a freshman, a sophomore, a junior, make all A's, turn everything in on time. But if you don't finish, it's useless. You've got to finish. People tell me all the time, I did this for this long. I did that for this long. Did you finish? Did you execute? It's worthless if you didn't finish. You have got to become a person that will complete tasks. And if your life is filled with a lot of started projects, but things that are not completed, you will never move your life forward. You make advances by completing projects and executing tasks. I remember when I bought my first rental house. It was out of this foreclosure. It was on the market forever before I bought it, and no one wanted to buy it because it looked like somebody had been killed in there. There was blood on the ceiling. There was blood on the walls. There was just, it just looked like there had been a massacre in there. And I was like, there's nothing that a little bit of prayer and some kills can't fix. And we bought it. And we got it for a steal because nobody wanted it. I mean, an absolute steal. But I had a few priorities. One, I'm not going to steal from the church. I mean, I know in a sense that, you know, it's unethical for me to work 40 hours somewhere else and to get pay from being here too. So I have an ethical responsibility to, in my mind, to be here for a certain amount of time and to do a certain amount of work. But I also didn't want to wreck my family, right? I mean, they're my priority. They're my bread and butter. They're the reason I'm doing this. They're my why. They're what's important. So I had an ethical responsibility to the church that I was at, and I had a moral responsibility to my wife. They're my priorities, to my kid. And so what I would do is we would work weekends, me and Rachel together. She would cut tile, and we would do things like that. But we wanted to get it. We didn't have like bukus of time to have a mortgage that we weren't drawing income from. We didn't have time to just sit on that and just make things happen slowly. So what I would do is Rachel was working. I'd do the bedtime routine with my kids. I would lay in bed with Rachel, and I would hold her until she fell asleep, because she falls asleep real easy. And then I'd hop out of bed. I'd put my work clothes on, and then I would go to the house and work from about 11:30 to 1:30 in the morning. And whenever I would go there, my objective was lay the tile in this bathroom, paint this room, fix this ceiling, fix the holes in this room. It was executing task and finishing task. And eventually, we were able to get that house up, and we got that house rented. And that house, mainly because we got it real cheap, has paid for itself 3 times over the 14, 15 years that we've had it. What you've got to understand is that if you're going to live like a king, you've got to work like an ox, but you have to work with purpose, and you have to execute tasks. You have to move things off of your I need to get it done list to your done list. That's how you move things forward. That's how you grow. That's how you make progress. It's not just randomly working. It is systematically checking things off, systematically making steps, and systematically moving your life ahead. The king is also consistent like an ox. Say, I will be consistent. Success in any field is the result of good habits. And you must develop the habit of offering more. Consistently offering more effort over time will reap huge benefits. This is the principle of one thing, and I've posted some stuff about this on Facebook. If you keep putting in the extra, over time, you will not be able to recognize the person in the mirror. It's that one more rep, that one more book, that one more hour. It's that pushing yourself to do the one more thing. And though it only gives you a little bit of benefit, over time, those drops add up into a massive amount. Joshua says that he stayed in the tent praying with Moses. And it says then, after Moses would leave, Joshua would stay in this tent and stay in prayer and stay in worship and stay in God's presence. It was that little bit extra that transformed Joshua, where Moses could not lead the people into the promised land. Joshua did. It's the principle of one thing. It's that doing that little bit extra over the long term will add up to great results. And I see folks all the time, they go, oh, Pastor, I want to lose so much weight. I want to do this work. And so what they do is they start a diet, or they start exercising, they start doing something. And then I check in with them, and they say, it just wasn't working. I was on this for for 2 months, and I lost like 8 pounds. It was so hard. But if you kept up at that pace for a whole year, you would have lost 52 pounds. You see what I'm saying? Is that we have to understand, who wouldn't want to lose 52 pounds, right? The reality is we diminish the effects of small gains. But what happens is every time we invest a small gain in a marriage, in breaking a behavior, in losing weight, in bettering ourselves, in educating ourselves, in all of these things, when we make these small investments, it's like putting it in a CD that we get compound interest from later on. Seven or 8 years ago, I was at the beach. This was before Micaiah died and before I had all my other kids. And, you know, I don't know. I get to feeling spiritual when I'm sitting on the balcony watching the ocean, the waves roll in. And I'm out there and I'm praying and I'm talking to the Lord. And the Lord said, he spoke to me. He said, I want you to write a prayer Bible. He said, you pray the scriptures a lot. He goes, what I want you to do is I want you to go through the whole Bible and I want you to put it to prayer. Write these prayers out, yada, yada, yada. Well, that's a pretty big project. And I didn't do anything with it. 2 or 3 years, thought about it a lot. Didn't do anything. Then, fast forward a few more years, Micaiah died, and just in a place of, you know, tough spot in life, a lot of grief, a lot of, not bitterness toward people, but just bitter at life. And I just wasn't at a place to do it. Then I moved here, and things just, it seemed, as I got settled in here, it just seemed like, you know, this is time to act on this. You know, at this point, it's 5, 6 years from the time that the Lord had spoken to me. So I started and I determined, you know, there's 12 minor prophets. I can do one book a month. And, you know, and I'll do that. And I tried that and just did the normal thing. And tried a lot of late nights and tried the, you know, doing stuff on the weekends and doing things along those lines. And it just felt really hard. Well, at the end of not last year, but the year before last, you know, I met my goal, but it just felt like an incredible burden. Then I decided, you know what? If I can just do one chapter a day, then over the course of the year, I'll do 365 chapters. That will put me on the course of finishing in, you know, 5 years from the time I started, you know, 5.5 years. And it maybe won't feel so much like a burden. And so really for about the last year and a half, I've done one chapter a day. And there's times like I don't do one on Sunday, so I do 2 on Saturday. You know? And I just do a little bit every day. And sometimes it's really easy. Sometimes if I'm in a season where things are really busy, I'm picking an area out of Psalms that has little short Psalms. You know what I'm saying? But I'm doing something every day to move me toward my goal. And the reality is just doing a little bit every day has produced a whole lot more results than the first year that I tried of trying late nights, working on the weekend, working in large blocks of time, but just consistently doing the little bit extra has pushed me ahead and has set me on course to where I need to be. And it's a parable of life. The reality is we're so accustomed to wanting to have quick gains so fast. We're so accustomed to wanting to have everything we want so fast that either we try to take shortcuts and we mess things up, or we quit and we mess up. But what you have to understand is the principle of one thing. If you're going to just do one thing every day that will move you to your goal, one thing that will help you out, one thing that will be a small gain, one thing that will move you forward, then there will be transformation in your life. And after a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, you will not be able to recognize the person that's in the mirror. So you want to live like a king? Here's what I want to do to help you and help us. First of all, if you're on Facebook, like our Facebook page. If you're on Instagram, like our Instagram page. And then what I want you to do is when you do something that follows through with the principle of one thing, you exercise one day, you go to the gym, you make a healthy meal, You finish a book. You get your kids' homework done earlier in the week than the last minute. You do something along those lines. Then I either want you to take a picture or to do a video, maybe even do a selfie video of what you did, of what the one thing is, and then I want you to post that and put hashtag executed, hashtag living like a king. And that way, if you're on Instagram or your Facebook, you can just plug in hashtag whatever, and you can pull up all the testimonies of what our church is doing and what our people are doing, and you can see the changes that they're making in our life. Now, you got to make this contagious. You got to make this a part of what you're doing, and then you got to do this. You got to follow directions. Are you with me? But I want you to do this because remember, you got to find your tribe, what I talked about first. We're in this together. You gotta see what other people's doing and feed off of that. And when you see what Stephen's doing, and then you see what Kevin's doing, then what will happen is that will motivate you and say, hey, I'm not going to get left behind here. And we want to create a culture of growth, a culture of development, a culture of cooperation. The king is reliable just like a fox. Y'all are quiet this morning. I want to say this, that follow through is an issue of integrity. When you keep your word, you build confidence in yourself and respect from others. If you talk the talk, but you don't walk the walk, then you will lose respect from people, and you will lose respect for yourself. You must be at the place that if you're going to say, I'm going to make a difference in this world, then you have to be at the place where you say, if I say it, then I'll do it. If I talk it, then I'll walk it. If I give my word, I get it done. If things get hard, I get it done. If things come up, I get it done. If I don't feel like it, I get it done. If there's opportunities for fun and for pleasure, it doesn't matter. I've given my word and I get it done. I will get it done. I don't think, I do. You see, talkers talk and walkers walk. You see, don't tell them what you're going to do. Show them what you've done. Let results speak for you. Results speak more than words ever will. Haters will hate. Show them up with your walk. Living like a king means keeping your word, doing the work, and getting results. Jesus didn't quit in the garden when things got hard. When things started getting real and he was sweating drops of blood and soldiers were coming in, he wasn't like, oh man, this is getting tough here. This wasn't what I bargained for. Let me tell you something. The Romans and the Jews killed all kinds of people that said they were the Messiah. But only one of them got out of the grave. You see, he did the work. He focused in when he needed to. And he got the job done, and he got out of the grave, and he changed the world. That's the difference between a lot of posers and the real deal. The real deal will get the work done. And if you want to be the person that changes the world around you, that changes your home, that changes your life, then if you say it, you got to do it. You got to keep your word. You got to keep your commitments. You got to buckle down when things get hard. You got to stand up when things get tough. And I'm telling you, challenges will come. Difficulties will come. Relational problems will come. Conflict will come. But when you're a person that says, I'm going to keep my word no matter what, I'm going to follow through and I'm going to get the job done, then your world will start changing. The king works the process just like the ox. Between your potential and the palace is a process. This was true for Joseph, this was true for David, and this was true for Jesus. Before there's reaping, there's sowing. And before there's sowing, there's plowing. And plowing is where you need an ox. If you keep plowing when things are difficult, then there will come a time when your soil becomes fertile. There will come a time when you've dug out all of the rocks and you've worked the soil and the seeds that you've sowed are going to bring forth a harvest. For ushers could come forward. We must live like an ox together. Because if we want to harvest the souls, if we want to see the kingdom come in power, then we've got to plow, we've got to sow, and we've got to harvest. We must live like an ox together. Maybe there's someone that says, I'll help with the nursery once a month. I'll sit one and serve one. Maybe there's people that will say, I'll do preschool once a month. I'll sit one and serve one. Maybe there's someone that says, I'll be a love and action leader. Maybe there's folks that will say, you know what, I'll give to the building fund. If you look in your seats there, there's envelopes that say building fund. Now, we're not doing a pledge or anything like that, but if the Spirit leads you to give, then give to that. If he doesn't, then don't. Don't rob Peter to pay Paul. Don't take your tithes and offerings and put it in your building fund. That'll just put us in a jam. Okay? Don't do that. But as the Spirit leads you to do something extra, you can do that. We need people that will plow, people that will help. You see, we have to do that as a church, and then you have to do that as an individual. Many of us are not ready to harvest our dreams, to harvest our callings, to harvest our purpose, because we haven't put the work in. You haven't made the investments in yourself, in your family, in your career, in your spirit-filled life. You haven't sowed your seeds and you haven't plowed your field, and you're looking to increase your life. And what I'm telling you is God's not going to give it to you on a silver platter. You've got to develop yourself. You've got to start plowing. But it's never too late. Some things you can't change. But the things you have a choice in, you better make the right choice. Make it now. It's a time that you determine that you're growing into the challenge. It's time to put in the effort. It's time to put in the effort into things that you have been avoiding. You need to make a list of things that you want and start executing. It must fix this. You need to say, I must fix this. Before I fix that, then start today. I want you to get out either your grow card in one hand and your connection card in the other. And we're going to drop the connection card in the offering with our tithes and our offerings. So let's go ahead. Father, bless those people as they give and as they offer themselves to you. You guys can go ahead and collect. But now what I want you to do, we just got a few minutes, is I want you to take your connection or take your grow card. And I think I have some music going on the last side that's cued there. Just go ahead and play that. And we just got 5 minutes before the next service starts. We can bring the volume down just a little bit. But I want you to take a few moments and fill out your grow card and say, Lord, this is where I need to grow. This is where I need to develop. This is what I need to do. And then after you work on that, you can pray with your neighbor for a little bit, and then you can be dismissed. If you need to get ready for the next phase, go ahead and do that as well.